Welcome to Fandom Shmandom, the fandom podcast that covers everything you love and more. I'm Sierra Obermark.
And I am Sam Williams. And a big giant welcome schmelcome to our expert on today's episode. It's Garrett, the literal space scientist fielding. Bow, 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 bow.
Meow, meow.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
You're so welcome. So, Garrett, tell us about the day you were born. I'm kidding.
Well, it all started back in the war.
The 90s is literally the most peaceful era of the United States history in any of the decades. What war? Okay, here we go. Into the Star Wars with our expert.
Today's episode, we will be chillingly chittering about Padme Amidala and Ahsoka Tano. That's right, it's a twofer, folks.
Yes, Padme, or as Carrie Fisher once called her, Padme Armadillo.
She did do that. Although not accident, not because she was uninformed, probably intentionally.
For sure it's intentional. It was part of a roast.
Yeah. When you first told me that fact,
you don't want me misleading the viewer, the listeners.
Yeah, correct.
I see. You have the honor of the listeners at heart.
I'm on the side of the listener.
You're willing to ruin a good joke to make sure everyone knows that Carrie Fisher knows what she's talking about.
Look, I just want the listeners to know that I am on their side and I'm looking out for them.
Okay, fine. If you want to see that joke in action, go to Carrie Fisher Roasts George Lucas at the American Film Institute Life Achievement Award.
The episodes where I'm not here must just be awful for the listener. You just must be misleading them all over the place.
Yeah, you'll just have to come on. You don't even have to talk. You just have to come on to play referee.
Oh, okay.
For all the podcasts from here on out.
You dug this hole, lie in it.
Without further ado, we will, as Roger Smith says, dive on in. So, Sierra, tell us all about the when category of our first woman, Padme.
Well, when are viewers introduced to Padme? And how do our schmisteners mainly know her? Well, she's introduced to us in Phantom Menace. She is in the prequels, and we know her from those because then she perishes.
Spoiler alert! She dies!
Spoiler alert if you didn't know that Luke and Leia's mother was not around anymore.
Would you then argue, for semantics, since you're the referee here, Garrett, would you then argue that Padme is first introduced to us in 1983's Return of the Jedi?
I remember my mother. No, you don't. She was sad. I mean, she was.
Her name is not mentioned, and also, this could be a pitfall, but like, it's a glimpse at what could have been, right? Because Leia says she does remember her mother, and so that then begs the question. Almost certainly at the time, George Lucas had not had the idea for the prequels as they were. Or as they would come to be. So that is obviously not Mrs. Organa. So is that was the separation of the children from their mother happening at a different point in their lives? Maybe Luke was separated earlier, etc. It does make you think what does that one line actually mean? What could that have been? Because as it stands right now, it's a really weird line. Taking the prequels and the originals together right now, it's a really weird line. She has to be talking about Bale's wife.
Right.
But that then means that she's not adopted, or she doesn't know that she's adopted. And given everything that we know now, including the Obi-Wan show, does that hold water still?
Okay, so We talked a little bit about this on our Revenge of the Sith podcast when we got to Padme dying, because I directly called it out and said, this is a retcon from the original lines in Return of the Jedi, where Leia's like, I remember my mother, and I'll say what I said then, which is, some people are going to argue that Leia has Force abilities, and therefore, through some Force latent memory, magic, humbo-jumbo stuff, she has a memory of Padme.
I call that copium.
Yes, agreed. So, yeah, I don't think it makes sense at all anymore. Now, Sierra, you have not seen the Obi-Wan show, so shut your ears for a second. It can't be Bael's wife, because she has a very firm and happy relationship with that woman.
Quite, like, into, like, her, double-digit years.
Yeah, she's 10 when Obi-Wan comes to rescue her.
Right, exactly. So, little things, her comment about, like, little things memory, she died when I was very young. Yeah. Well, so it can't be Bael. It's just...
It's so annoying, too, because it's like, it's just worded vaguely enough that I suppose George Lucas could come in and say, yes, she has the memories from the Force, because she was alive for 8 minutes. And she was sad, and she died when she was very young. So, check box to both.
You're
almost literally
correct.
could not get any younger.
What's doubly frustrating about this for me is that this debate was happening even before the Obi-Wan show, right? Like, before the Obi-Wan show, there's still this debate about, like, is it Bael's wife? What else could it possibly be interpreted as? And so the writers of the Obi-Wan show could have avoided it altogether.
Yeah. And didn't.
And then they didn't. I throw my hands up. That's all.
The who category. Who is Padme? What defines her? What makes her tick? And what is likable and dislikable about her? Well, if you just watched Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, you could almost give her the Iron Man treatment. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. She's extremely smart. She's deaf wealthy. She bagged Anakin, and she spends her whole life working in the public service. Convinced?
I don't know that I agree with that.
Okay, give me your argument, Garrett.
She is certainly capable. I mean, she's obviously a renowned and respected member of the greater political environment that Star Wars has.
Yes.
I don't know that qualifies her for genius territory.
She was elected queen.
Highly capable.
At 14 years old.
We don't know what that... we don't know. We don't know about Naboo's electoral system.
It's all young women.
Yeah.
They're all very young.
They do specifically.
They are all young.
Still, she manages to go on to be senator, replacing Palpatine at some point. That's pretty smart. She's a huge voice in the Senate by the time we get to Attack of the Clones when she's 22 years old. So I would argue she's at least a political genius who then allows the Galactic Empire to be reorganized under her reign as senator. So
I will allow
maybe
political genius.
Great, political genius. Got it. Marked. Big check marks. Tell me why she's not a billionaire.
Is she fantastically wealthy? I mean, she is queen and, like, obviously has a lot of stuff. But, like, does that come from the role, or is she actually wealthy?
Have you seen her ship?
Yeah, but that
Have you seen her accommodations? Have you seen the place that she lives on Naboo?
Yep,
but again,
the place that she lives on Naboo, that's not where she lives. That's the Lake District where she went as a child for school. That's not her house.
So, if you add on...
I think all of these belong to the public. I believe all of these belong to the citizenry of Naboo.
But do you have proof?
Actually, fact, yes, it's in the books.
God. Okay, so she's not she's a political genius, and she's publicly wealthy by the donations of the Naboo government while she's in public service. Great.
Publicly wealthy.
Playboy, she bagged Anakin. Argue that one.
That's one person.
Yeah, a playboy inherently implies many people.
Even if you're going to expand that brings it up to 2 with clothes.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's not a genius. She's not a billionaire. She's not a playboy. I would love to see you argue that she's not a philanthropist.
Well, she absolutely is a philanthropist.
Good. So when Captain America asks her, what happens if you remove the superpowers? And she goes, I'm a philanthropist.
This is a
She doesn't have superpowers. And
if you remove her husband's superpowers, what are you left with?
Iron Man does not also have superpowers.
Oh, right.
I don't think this Iron Man treatment analog is holding much water.
Well, then let's discuss who she
is
actually
falling
is.
apart at the seams.
Let's actually discuss who Padme really is. So, in our category, Jack Sparrow did what? Deleted scenes from Attack of the Clones, we see that Padme does indeed have a family that is active and around. Her mother and her sister we meet.
Mm-hmm. And in the books as well, we do have a number of encounters with her family and see the relationship that she has with her dad and the relationship she has with her mom and with her sister and all of those things. Even get to have a little bit about her sister getting married, and it's all very sweet.
Which is fascinating that they didn't include that in the films. Like,
Well, and they shot it. They shot it. It was there.
Mm-hmm.
They just removed it. And
When Sierra it is and a really humanizing look at Padme.
Precisely. That when Sierra and I took a look at that together on a planning call ages ago, Sierra's just sitting there with her mouth agape, being like, "Why didn't they include this?"
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Wild.
I don't know. Not to be disparaging of Attack of the Clones, but like of all the in that film in particular, like of all the things you could have cut.
Yeah, for real.
Especially of all the Padme Anakin scenes you could have cut.
You could have cut.
Exactly.
You cut arguably the best, most humanizing, most relevant one.
Well, and it's so funny because one of my big complaints about that movie is we never really see Padme make the transformation from like hands-off Anakin to like, actually I do like you. And that scene has the moment with when her mom's like, "Oh yeah, you don't like this boy, huh?" Which is the subtext of the scene, not what she literally says. And Padme's like,
of course,
curls hair behind ear.
Yeah. It's a very important scene, and it's really difficult to like interpret her character without having more of that context.
Because then we get to, by the way, Padme, I just killed all the women and the children. And she's like, "Yeah, you're my guy. Doesn't matter."
It's all good. We make mistakes sometimes.
We make mistakes sometimes. I don't know that many of us make genocidal mistakes.
Twice.
But the women and the children, too.
I mean, at least the second time it was just the children.
Progress.
No, he kills women and men as well in
Oh, when he goes and
before he gets to the room
Federation.
full of children, he does kill adults.
I suppose.
That's true. And then also all the Trade Federation folks.
Yeah. Also, though, she is decisive. She's a leader. She's incredibly insightful as to both, like, instinctually what to do and for the collective good and the politics of it all. And that's if you just watch Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones.
I was about to say, you and I were talking about this earlier, and that is the character that exists until Revenge of the Sith.
No, until Clone Wars. Clone Wars, they nerf her immediately. She's like, what if I trusted everybody all the time and then was constantly a damsel in distress needing rescue?
You mean the Clone Wars animated show?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Chronologically, yes. In terms of release.
In terms of release, as soon as we get to Revenge of the Sith, they're like, "You are sad and pregnant, and that is all you are."
And that is all you need to know.
But what about the one scene where I get to be political in the Senate? You're still just sad and pregnant.
However, great line.
Great line.
Yes. Probably
one of the best lines in the whole series.
So relevant.
And this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
But chronologically, yes. Clone Wars comes along, and suddenly she's a totally different character.
Entirely different. Sierra and I have spoken on it many times. Do you have anything that you would like to add about that specifically, Garrett?
Not specifically. I'm sure you've harped on it. It is, and I think that this is true of all of the characters in Clone Wars. The first couple of seasons of Clone Wars are just written. They're just written differently. And I think all of the characters suffer for this. We're going to talk about Ahsoka in this episode in sort of the same fashion. Like, Ahsoka's character in the beginning of Clone Wars is very different than the end of Clone Wars. And it's a major improvement throughout the show. Padme's character, I think, suffers at the beginning of Clone Wars in sort of the same way. The difference is that they never, write her out of that hole.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, they never truly fix the issues with her character as we go along. The only thing that we really get is that there's a transition between her getting into these messes because she's trusting of people in the political sphere or people that she once knew, and she just has this good heart, and so then she ends up, or she has this kind of I have to do things myself, kind of self-sacrificing outlook, and so she's constantly putting herself in danger. And then it does almost get this Revenge of the Sith, you're sad and pregnant treatment, because then her character goes to, oh, I'm still trusting of this person who I've already been proven to not be able to trust. I'm going to trust him again. Oh, wait, it's causing problems in my marriage. Oh, now I'm really sad about that. Oh, now I'm really sad because Anakin is off fighting and I'm off doing diplomacy things and we aren't seeing each other. And then she's just this kind of sad wife who's missing her husband, and we only kind of see her in the background a few times. And so they kind of destroy her character in terms of how great of a female leader she is. They turn her into kind of a caricature, and then she just vanishes almost, and we see her in holographic form, and that's about it.
Yep.
And then she's just gone, and they just don't really talk about it unless Anakin specifically brings it up, or they, he's making a mention that he has to go and talk to her, or he's worried about her safety or something like that. But it's very frustrating.
It's doubly frustrating because Clone Wars has this ability to fix a little bit of what I feel is a weak storyline in Revenge of the Sith, which is when Anakin is like, oh my gosh, Padme is having an affair with Obi-Wan. And we do get built in this intense jealousy of Anakin to immediately feel like Padme is cheating on him with Clovis, which happens in two different arcs. However, they never really build up Obi-Wan and Padme's relationship in a way that makes you go, oh, I could see where Anakin's coming from. And so instead, you just get Anakin sniffing like a wolf and in his home being like, Obi-Wan was here. One time in Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
And then when he's on the ship and Sexy Bax is playing with Obi-Wan standing behind him, he's just like, You turned her against me.
You turned her against me?
You have done that yourself. Bum, ba-da, 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 bum. So
the frustrating, exactly. I think it's a frustrating point because they could easily have built in more Padme Obi-Wan relationship, and we get a lot of Obi-Wan hinting around the fact that he knows that something's going on, that he knows that they're together, that he knows that Anakin is not following the Jedi Code, that, that Padme and him are a lot closer than they're letting on to anybody else. And we get those hints where, Obi-Wan has essentially figured it out, but there's no real relationship between Padme and Obi-Wan. It's just Obi-Wan talking to Anakin or Rex and going, oh yeah? So what's he doing? All right, well, tell Padme I said hi next time.
Yeah, exactly. Bro's got his back.
Yeah, for real.
So it's
Obi-Wan ain't no snitch.
But Anakin's
almost,
bro has got my girl's back. What's happening?
Yeah, it almost seems like, you know, and he just twists this whole thing around, and there it really is no buildup in there. And I also have a hard time because the Clovis jealousy arcs don't really have a resolution.
No.
Anakin is so angry throughout the arc, and they fight, and they have these really serious fights about how he doesn't trust her, and she is just trying to do these things, and then, you know, she ends up getting into trouble, almost proving Anakin correct that
she kisses him.
That she's being too trusting, and that Clovis is actually interested in her, as we see in so much media, when the guy says, well, they really like you, and the girl's like, no, we're just friends, and then it's like, oh, wait,
Wait, Clovis is in my bed right now.
Yeah, it's a little silly. And then just Anakin fights Clovis, they get angry again, and then we never talk about it. And there's no resolution on that one, and so it's just kind of lingering. So then when you see Padme later, you're going, wait, aren't they still mad at each other? No?
Right.
How much time has passed again? I guess they got over it.
The resolution happened off script, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
This relationship with Clovis, this whole arc, is another example of early Clone Wars kind of being overly simplistic in its portrayal of everything, really. Not just in terms of the story of Star Wars, but also, like, philosophically, the ideas it's trying to convey are kind of reductive. And so this first time we meet Clovis is very like, oh, let's just have, you know, the boys be mad at each other. And even though the second time they meet is much later on in season 6, when Clone Wars has really figured itself out, it may very well be the result of, like, the echo of the simplicity of this scenario to begin with is just, like, all they have to work with, which is kind of unfortunate.
Well, Clone Wars does a really good job of, especially for Anakin's character, trying to show you why Anakin does this thing in Revenge of the Sith. The big exception for me is this jealousy arc. Okay, I see that he's jealousy, but without any of the resolution or coming back to it, it makes Padme's side feel really empty.
Yeah.
And so by the time, like, Padme does at one point say, do you not trust me? And Anakin's like, no. And that's, I think, supposed to sit with us and be like, oh, right, Anakin doesn't trust her. But Padme, I feel like Attack of the Clones Padme would have not let that sit.
Yeah, she would have had things to say about that.
Yes, and instead, Clone Wars Padme and Revenge of the Sith Padme is like, I guess I'll never convince him. Woe is me. I am once again, and say it with me now, sad.
I, you know, as many foibles as Attack of the Clones has, you know, the Padme who seems to be on top of things is, you know, kind of a bad.
Yes, although we now have to bleep you.
Oh, dang it.
I have a lot more love for Attack of the Clones at the end of this whole watch. Not for the movie overall, but there are some real gems in there. Padme's character rocks. Obi-Wan's character rocks.
Obi-Wan is phenomenal.
Jango Fett and Obi-Wan's story arc is really good. Mace Windu rocks in that movie with the little time screen that he's given. Like, there are some awesome parts to that movie. And it's just a real shame that Obi-Wan gets to go ahead and keep being amazing, and Padme just gets shut down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What makes her tick is genuinely creating a better space around her. And in my head, this is what makes Leia and Padme better than the boys of their trio. Because both of them are dedicated to making the world around them much better, versus Han and Anakin go on a much more like, all right, so how's my life improving story arc? And Obi-Wan and Luke are kind of feeling themselves in their Jedi-ness. But it's still kind of selfish, versus Padme and Leia are both like, no. Let's go and get the things done that actually help the people around me. And this feels like a very true feminist message. And it feels very true to a lot of the women that I know in my life who are like, yeah, I'm actually here to be a team player.
Yeah, I would agree. Again, sort of in what we've said before, I would agree with that completely up until Revenge of the Sith Padme, where suddenly she's kind of just a backseat character.
Now that we've talked about what we like and dislike about her character arcs, let's discuss what we like and dislike about Padme herself. I think we have already touched on a lot of it. Padme is likable, so therefore she is resourceful, she is passionate, she is sharp, she is unrelenting, she is unbendable to the forces of evil, and my main dislike, to quote Grand Moff Tarkin when talking about her daughter, she also has the same sin. You're far too trusting.
Yeah, I think what's likable about Padme really comes in kind of what we've been saying. In the first two, where she is this powerhouse, she has these really great ideas. She is an excellent queen. She's a great senator. She knows what is going to help those around her, as we've been talking about, and knows how to make that happen. We get a lot of additional information. We'll get into it in just a little bit from some books about her that really go into how she works in the political sphere and the alliances that she makes and who she really interacts with in order to better the planetary system. So all of that is fantastic. And what's dislikable is how her character becomes very one-dimensional, and she loses that spark of how much she can affect the world around her, and she becomes very insular and really only cares about herself and Anakin, and that's it. And that is a very frustrating thing because I loved Padme in the first two movies, going, great, we've got, she's so capable and she's got all these things going for her. And, in the first one, it's like all that wild makeup and, oh, there's decoys and just so much interesting things are happening around her. And then she's just kind of a different character by the end, which is very frustrating. And obviously we have to get her to be not around anymore. And so I guess the thought process is she slowly loses all the things that make her her, and now she's just about Anakin, and that's how she can lose the will to live. Whatever the case may be, I still think there are so many better ways for her to have died in a more spectacular fashion that aligns with all of the likable things about her character, really going for glory of the Republic and I'm going to fight for what I believe in, and didn't turn out well this time, and that could have been her end, and it would have been a fitting end. And so that's kind of my line of likable versus dislikable is really just as soon as she isn't her own person anymore.
I agree.
This brings us to the what category. What extra material exists about Padme outside of the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars series, which we've mainly discussed already? And what does this material do to shape our understanding of who Padme is? So as I've touched on already, there is a trilogy of books: Queen's Shadow, Queen's Peril, and Queen's Hope. And these books detail basically what Padme is up to as a queen, as a senator, as a newlywed, and goes into a little bit of almost behind the scenes of her early time as a queen before Phantom Menace. We also get during Phantom Menace and the occupation of Naboo. And then we get after her wedding, after her marriage to Anakin, and a little bit of how that works with her being a senator and their relationship as well. The thing that I found the best about all three of these books is all of the details that we get about the handmaidens / decoys that we see from her as a queen, and then also briefly from her as a senator as well. It is very much in detail. We get backstories on all of her handmaidens, both as a queen and as a senator, because there are some overlapping, but most of them are completely separate. And so we get to see their stories as well, which is very interesting. And just all of the details of how they came to this idea and how it works and how they swap in and swap out and who they can fool. All of that was fascinating to me and really just showed a lot more of Padme's intelligence and craftiness. And that's just supported by this other group of women who are there for her 100%, which is really, really cool. And it's also very interesting because there are some of these handmaidens who have their own stories going on. And at times they're more interesting because you're seeing what is happening to these people during the Naboo occupation, for instance, where Padme is obviously not in peril at that moment, but her handmaidens are. And so we get some details. I'm going to try not to spoil
Yeah, totally.
any of those kind of side stories and everything. But there's also a lot more information about the Trade Federation and the blockade and why all this happened with Naboo past, this is just Palpatine's scheme. So it's all very, very interesting. Lots of backstory. The difficulty that I had with the books is that sometimes Padme is overshadowed. So she becomes...
It's called the Queen's Shadow!
Well, so I would argue mostly in Queen's Hope, which is the last one. I had a really hard time because Padme didn't seem as interesting anymore. It was almost like this same thing that we've been talking about. She's super interesting. She has all these great ideas. You want to learn more about her and how she got here. And then suddenly we get to Queen's Hope, which takes place after she and Anakin have gotten married. And it doesn't continue to explain why Padme cares for Anakin. It doesn't continue to explain what is going on with her. And she's just kind of uninteresting. And then the handmaiden stories are way more fascinating.
Let this be a lesson to you women. Do not get married lest your life crumble into dust.
Lest it becomes so boring. No. And it's not necessarily that, but I think that these books are very important for understanding Padme, though, because we don't fully understand what it means to be a queen of Naboo. We don't really see that in the movies. We just see that she is one. But this goes into more of the details of how are the queens chosen and how long are they queen for and what do they do after they're queen. All of those kind of details about how the governmental system works with Naboo and then also with the Senate as well. Super interesting. A lot of backstory, and you get a lot of really good information that supports Padme's intelligence and capability and how she deserves to be where she is, and her relationship with Bail Organa, which is absolutely key throughout these books. And also, we get so much more of her interacting with her family. And that was something that earlier in this episode we've been talking about, that we don't get to see that in the movies. They cut that part out. And so in these books, you do get to see a lot of those interactions where she goes home and she talks to her family about family and what it means to just be a part of a small family and what their hopes and dreams for her were and what she hoped and dreamed for herself. So I think that they are very, very good. I think that they are a wealth of information about Padme, and they might not be for everybody. I had varying degrees of liking the stories overall, but there are definitely some interesting takeaways that I think are worth reading.
This is exactly the kind of content that I wish was in the films instead of some of the other stuff we got.
Yeah.
Like, I think this kind of content, we've talked about this, but this kind of content instead of a bunch of what we got in Attack of the Clones would have been super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Garrett, in the old EU, what existed about Padme?
Old EU, again, this is a little bit of a problem that prequel characters suffer from, because there isn't a whole ton of old EU content that exists before the Disney buyout and the like canning of Legends content.
Right.
So it's not like there's a ton of information. We do get a bunch of like, or at least a little bit of some of the same content that Sierra is talking about in terms of like the inner political machinations of Naboo and the Senate. We do get some interesting details about specifically Sheev Palpatine's rise to power, and Padme's relationship with Sheev as she like transitions to become his replacement in the Senate. But it's not like, I wouldn't call it a really strong character profile in the EU. And this is true of a lot of EU content at this point in time. It's not, a lot of characters don't really get a more firm character than they got in the films. A lot of old EU content just took characters that we loved and exploded them into larger-than-life character depictions. With a bunch of the prequels characters, it's mostly just like, here's more of the same from the film. It's just like more of what they were in the film. And Padme, I think, suffers from this because this is kind of an excellent opportunity to do the kinds of things that Sierra was talking about, and it doesn't really happen to a very high degree in the old EU, which is unfortunate because I think it's a big missed opportunity.
That brings us to the how category. How does all this extra material change our perspective of Padme? How does it inform the way we consume material we know her from now? I think it's all, thankfully, additive in a way that just bolsters what we already know about Padme. I think, as you were saying, Sierra, the foibles of some of those later books, especially the last one of Padme's, is like, she's just not as interesting as Sabe or any of the other handmaidens that are in the books.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, what it makes me want more than anything is a book series or a TV series or an animated short or something called The Handmaidens Tales, Margaret Atwood Don't Sue Us, where we just get all of these handmaidens and what they're doing. You know, they've done like Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Sith, and Tales of the Underworld. And now I want Tales of the Handmaidens.
Yeah.
Because it makes them really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see more. What I really want more is, Garrett, what you were saying with Sheev and Padme's relationship. That, I think, is a really cool area to explore.
I've forgotten one thing that's that's really important.
Yes.
There is it takes place post Return of the Jedi. Luke and Leia have visions of end up getting visions of Padme's death. Is one thing that's brought on. So this is not taking place during the prequel era, like most of her content is, but in the book is The Joiner King, and it's set 35 years after the original trilogy. But Luke finds a hologram of Anakin that he informs like Padme that he is had a vision of her dying in childbirth, and this is the first time that like Luke sees an image of his mother, and then Luke and Leia both have like visions of Padme's death at their birth. So it's like a small detail that again doesn't really inform her character at all.
That book is published after 2005?
It is published in 2005.
Okay, so they knew what was happening in Revenge of the Sith.
Correct.
Fascinating.
Interesting.
That's a really interesting tidbit.
It's not like it doesn't do anything for her character.
Yeah.
It's just like, it is a link between her and her children.
Well, and it's really disappointing because we get so much linkage between Leia, Luke, and Vader. especially in old EU, we get a lot more linking between Leia and Vader because the fact that Leia is Vader's daughter messes with her political career a lot. And of course, in the movies, like, the father-son relationship was kind of the thing about Emperor Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And I would just love to see more of there being some, Leia and Luke returning to Naboo, finding out about their heritage, something of that nature that we could see in text or comic form.
Mm-hmm. So, just in terms of, like, changing perspective on Padme, I don't know that this quote necessarily changes the perspective, but it really hones in on her importance to Anakin and her importance in the story in general. I think this quote comes from Queen's Hope, and I think it's definitely the most important section of that book, and maybe all three in terms of quote that really sums things up. She was so small and so fragile. He would do anything to protect her. Nothing would keep them apart. Mm. And that's obviously from Anakin's perspective when he's thinking about her and wanting to keep her safe. And I think that really just nails down exactly who she is in this story.
Yeah.
And
it's a bit of a bummer that, like, her importance to the story is as the reason that Anakin goes crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I kind of wish that she was more important in her own right, like, as a result of the things that she did and was responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
Because she has that potential. Like, that's what we talked about
for
episode 1 and 2, Padme being.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of, like, galactic affairs, there could have been things that happened there that were more important. But as it stands right now, she's just like, the reason that Anakin loses his mind.
But when it really comes down to it, though, this is a story about the Skywalkers.
Yeah.
And so
I know, but
that's the thing is, like, she can affect all of these other things that we don't see, and we see glimpses of throughout the content that we have. On this galactic scale, she is really impacting things, and she's making a difference. The challenging part is that she has to fit into the story that George Lucas is telling.
But I will say this, Sierra. Han Solo is not a Skywalker, and he gets a great story where his impact is seen throughout the entire thing. And she's just as part of the Skywalker. I mean, she's more part of the Skywalker story. She's actually married into the family. Han at that point hasn't actually married Leia. We don't see them him actually in the family until episode 7. So I understand that what you're saying. It is absolutely, it's the Skywalker saga until it's the Palpatine saga. But at this point,
boo.
But at this point, she is a Skywalker in essence. And to nerve her this bad, I don't think that there's so much of that excuse of, like, but it's the Skywalker, because she really is.
No. And I'm not saying that it's an excuse that she gets treated in that way. I'm just saying, I'm agreeing. It's a shame that in order for her to fit into what they have essentially shoehorned for her story, this is how it it didn't have to go this way, but this is the way that they took everything, because they needed Anakin to lose his mind. They needed to see the fall of him because of his attachment issues. They needed to see the trust break down, and she cannot be alive for her children. So all
Except
of those
she could have been. She could have been alive for Leia's
for a
memories.
Short time.
For Leia's memories.
For a short time.
For a short time.
She
and
could have.
I think about, like,
which is a shame.
The movie Valkyrie with Tom Cruise, which is about Germans inside the Nazi army trying to take out Adolf Hitler. It's based off a true story. And they do a montage at the end of all the different deaths that the Nazis do once they discover that this group is inside them. And I think an ending like that could have been appropriate, where you do get to see Padme survive childbirth but have to leave her children in two different spots, go out into the universe, try and visit, and then be killed by Vader later on, or by the Emperor, or by something really cool and interesting.
Yeah,
but what they do is they retcon And they try and make
lame.
it this, like, epic love story.
No.
Which, as I said in the Revenge of the Sith, it's an indictment on her motherhood. Because her love for her children doesn't overpower her love for Anakin. It's just annoying.
It is very, very frustrating. I will never get over her ending. It's one of the worst things.
Certainly. But Shakespearean in a dramatic bad.
It's Ophelia-esque, and
It is Ophelia-esque.
Actually, you know what? I take it back. Shakespeare and his women characters are all terrible. They all die off screen. You are told about it from a different character. Lady Macbeth, off screen. Ophelia, off screen.
Yeah.
I mean, well, and even with I said Ophelia-esque and then realized there's a very direct correlation, because in the books, there are a number of sequences where she is floating in water with flowers around her.
Yeah.
And then, after she dies, she is laying with her hair flayed
above
out.
the river.
Exactly.
On a bridge.
With
You're right. You're so right. It is a direct Ophelia coordination, and I'm just putting that together.
Yeah. And I put it together when I was reading it, and then I kind of forgot about it until I made that connection again. But yes. And that is frustrating.
Yes, extremely.
It's very frustrating that that's who she becomes.
Yeah.
As a mother, I will not stand for it.
Yeah.
So, where does she fit into the fandom of Star Wars? And where does Padme rank in importance?
Okay, so I've got my stupid ship categorization from Death Star all the way down to Zistian-class Star Destroyers, the powerful and iconic, all the way down to no one cares. Where does she exist? It's difficult, because I'm in the green categories, which for our listeners are the Death Star, followed by the Millennium Falcon, the Executor, and the Fett's Fire Spray ship. So the Death Star stands for powerful and iconic, the Millennium Falcon stands for iconic, the Executor, which is the superclass Star Destroyer, stands for powerful but not as iconic, and the Fett's Fire Spray ship is huge group of fandom love and super involved in the fandom.
I just want to point out that 2 steps below that you have X-Wing, which is wild to me.
Small, iconic, and impactful.
X-Wing is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. X-Wing is number 6 on your list of iconic ships.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But look at the description. It's small, iconic, and impactful.
Yeah. That does not service its level of icon appropriately.
Would you put it between Millennium Falcon and the Executor?
I will admit that your descriptions of what each of the ships represent is totally accurate.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the order of them should have meaning.
Listen,
and it seems
like I said when we first went through this, anybody can fight me about this list, but it's my list.
Okay, fine.
Do we think she's powerful but not as iconic, or powerful and iconic?
It's almost like you need a not as powerful and not as iconic.
Yeah.
Well, I would argue that that's the X-Wing.
Small,
she's
iconic, and impactful.
She's impactful, but she's a small role when it comes to the story at large.
I will not tolerate this X-Wing disrespect.
That's the category. So you think that she's down there with Babu Freak and K2SO?
Oh, I don't know. That feels wrong.
I mean, I never really agreed with your who is in those categories ones. I'm ignoring the third column here completely. Because I don't know that she really fits in the other categories. I don't necessarily think of her as powerful, necessarily. She's iconic. I mean...
and she's powerful. If we ended Attack on the Clones, I would say she's powerful.
Sure.
But
we have to take everything.
What about the Fett's Fire Spray ship? That's a huge group of fandom love, and she's generally involved in the fandom.
Is there a huge group of fandom love for Padme?
Yes, she's a major cosplay character.
I mean, that's true, but is that the result of her character, or is that the result of the fact that she wears great outfits?
I was going to make the exact same point. This is a small side note. I literally, earlier today, was I was scrolling and a post popped up that said, show me a more iconic outfit. And it was from Atonement, the green dress. And that Keira Knightley wears. And the comments were just full of,
Padme.
Excuse me, but Padme exists. And it's just all of her outfits over and over and over.
But still, huge group of fandom love, regardless.
I think
for the costumer.
For Natalie Portman. Wearing those outfits very well.
Fine, fair, but like, the unfortunate thing about this is, and we've pointed this out, is that like, if we're making the direct comparison of like the big three in each of the trilogies, right? You have Han, Luke, and Leia, and Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme.
Yeah.
I don't think Padme gets the same level of respect that Leia does.
Which is, and I agree with that. I think that Obi-Wan I think Anakin gets the same level of respect as Luke, and Obi-Wan doesn't get the same respect as Han because he's in 19 minutes of the first film. And it's interesting because this happens in like any MVP conversation in sports, right? You miss the first 2 months of the season, but you finish the whole thing. Everyone will talk about you for MVP, but you miss the last 2 months of the season instead, and you're not considered at all. And because we take out, she has a huge role. This is my problem with X-Wing, is that she's a huge role in the first two movies.
Yeah. It really, you're totally right. You're totally right. It's Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith that is really tanking her chances, and I would not have thought that I would think about it that way, but that is exactly what is happening.
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that we can call her small, iconic, and impactful, because she's not a small. And also the Mon Calamari Cruiser thing is really not helping as for our fifth level, because that's layman might not know, but does have an impact and largely powerful. Like, laymen know about Padme.
Okay. If we're not putting her in the X-Wing category, I think the only other one that makes sense is Millennium Falcon. Iconic.
I agree with that. I can totally get down with iconic. And the character comp for that, even though Sierra's ignoring my character comp list, is Mace Windu, which I'm like, yeah. I think they're equally as iconic.
I'll give you that.
Yeah,
sure.
Are they equally as
well, it doesn't. It says one I word, Garrett. It says iconic.
It's a dumb list anyway. Who cares?
But it is interesting how what this conversation has brought up is the fact that like Padme sits in this weird spot where there's like some love for her, but also not, and she exists in outfits really only in the fandom and not her actual character. And there's just sort of this liminal space that she exists that isn't very helpful in defining who she is within the fandom.
Yeah.
Well, someone who exists almost entirely in the fandom, however, is Ahsoka, who we're going to discuss next. The when category. When are viewers introduced to Ahsoka, and how do our Schmisseners mainly know her? Well, we're introduced to her as a fresh little baby Jedi in the Clone Wars movie. The Clone Wars movie, which takes place during the Clone Wars series. For further information on that one, please see our Clone Wars Watch Order.
Many Clone Wars Watch Order, and also many Clone Wars episodes.
So many. So good, but so many.
And, you know, if I'm honest, I had forgotten that the movie came before any of the show.
Yeah.
2 episodes of the show, I believe, come before the movie.
The movie comes... So, in real life, the movie comes out first.
Yes.
And the actual... If you watch the show chronologically... There are 2 episodes that predate it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
sure.
There's not even any mention of Anakin having a Padawan.
I was thinking of release, not chronology.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in release order, the movie comes before everything.
I thought there was like already 1 season out or something, but yeah, I guess so.
No, that's how they launch it with Zorba and Ahsoka. And one of those characters rocks. So the who category. Who is Ahsoka? What defines her? What makes her tick? What's likable and dislikable about Ahsoka Tano? Well, Ahsoka, as mentioned, is a little itty-bitty Jedi Padawan. Until she is not. What what defines Ahsoka? I would say, in general, when I think of Ahsoka, I think of justice, fairness, and loyalty, which is the latter being something that she really struggles with when it comes to the loyalty for the Jedi Order, the loyalty to the clones, and her loyalty to Obi-Wan and Anakin, most importantly. When you guys think of what defines Ahsoka, what hits your mind first?
Well, I think visually, she's one of the only dual lightsaber wielders, which is an interesting, just visual differentiation of her. And I think that plays into how she is slightly different from a lot of other Jedi Padawans. She also is in a very unique position where she is a Padawan of Anakin, who I think for most people just kind of assumed that he would never have a Padawan. And I think he himself also believed that this would never be a thing. And he's rather thrown for a loop when he gets saddled with Ahsoka. And so she has just this kind of interesting relationship with being a Jedi from the very, very get-go, where she kind of like Anakin thinks that she's better than a lot of people, if not most Padawans, and kind of puts herself above others, whether valid or not. And so she definitely has, I think that's part of also what defines her, is just her self-confidence, and whether that is or is not earned in the moment.
I would say Ahsoka is defined by absorbing the best of the Jedi's philosophy, and simultaneously like escaping the worst institutional habits of the Jedi, right? Like when we first are introduced to her, she is very arrogant. But over the course of her character arc in the Clone Wars, the construction of her arc is such that she sheds her ego while maintaining her personality. And she, as a character, proves that you can be a very humanistic Force user, which in a lot of portrayals of the Jedi is kind of the opposite of what the Order tends to produce. And so that is like the unique defining feature of her. And ultimately, that is probably what leads to her sort of divorcing herself from the Order.
Yeah, absolutely. So what makes her tick? I think I asked this jokingly. Is Ahsoka our first Slytherin Jedi? Because her ambition and her own ability to believe in herself, earned or not, is certainly, I think, one of the things that makes her tick.
Yeah, especially early on. Like, and this is maybe one of my problems is a strong word, but very early Ahsoka, and it's not Ahsoka's fault. It's not the character's fault. It's like very early Clone Wars generally was sort of figuring itself out and was, I would classify it as like overly simplistic, right? Its character design was overly simplistic. And Ahsoka's early character is very arrogant, which is kind of what you're talking about, right? Like the manifestation of a lot of that confidence is arrogance, is perceived arrogance. And I would say that yes, she is ambitious, but simultaneously, she also has a really pronounced sense of justice. Like, she is the character in the show that when Obi-Wan and Anakin may approach a situation that isn't perfect and be like, yeah, this is kind of the way the world works, maybe, she is sort of the character who is like, well, hey, that's not right. Like, that's not what we're supposed to be about. And so she does have this like really defined sense of integrity. So I don't, and I'm admittedly not the Harry Potter expert, but I don't know where that puts her in the like house ranking.
Integrity is certainly not Slytherin.
But I will admit she absolutely is ambitious, especially early on.
Yeah. It's hard to not, in terms of actual Harry Potter crossovers, it's hard to not just lump all the Jedi that we see fighting in the Clone Wars into Gryffindor, because they just go and do all of these feats of bravery, and it's like, good, look, a bunch of meatheads. And then, like, the one or two Ravenclaws out there like Yoda who's like not telling anybody anything. So
Yeah.
I think what I really like about what you pointed out, Garrett, is Ahsoka getting all of the knowledge and goodness of the Jedi, but having a master that allows her to see outside the parameters of red tape. What the Jedi are sort of handcuffing themselves with during this entire war. Mm-hmm. And I think that ability later on is what allows her to see so clearly, especially when we get to the last season against Maul in Mandalore, where she is able to, once she's sprung the trap, walk through it, have a plan, have an escape plan for Order 66, and survive and become what we who have seen go to see her in Rebels and not Clone Wars, and the Ahsoka show. So I think that like axis of clarity is part of what makes Ahsoka tick as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the she exists in the gap between this like choice of integrity and choice of institutional loyalty. And interestingly, almost every time she chooses like the integrity choice kind of at the chagrin of everyone else in the institution who has to like grin and bear it and suffer with it in this like, well, Anakin's Padawan sort of way, right? Like, oh, of course it would be Anakin's Padawan. But it's not necessarily Anakin's fault. It's not like he has instilled that in her. It's just that he has allowed that in her.
Right.
Because he is less disciplined in that way.
One of his better qualities as a teacher, the freedom to allow herself to be herself while also pushing her directly or not towards the right choices. Because his mentorship... Does he do a
lot of pushing? Does he push her to the right choices?
But that's why I say in terms of pushing, whether it's directly or not, his ability to show her what integrity looks like acts as a carrot and a rod at the same time, right? Those are pushes as a teacher. Your example is a sense of force on your student, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I guess, and maybe this is just like kind of pessimistic of me, but I don't necessarily know that Anakin is doing that all that intentionally. I kind of think Anakin's
That's why I said intentionally or not.
I know, but I think Anakin's teaching style is very hands-off, and I don't know that. I think it's he's allowing things to happen, maybe because like he can't be bothered, or like maybe approaches it a little bit lazily, rather than actually instilling any of this in her.
I will say this: the product at the end of the day with Ahsoka is what I'm praising, and so he does something right. Yeah. And it's hard to exactly push what that is, except for the fact that he and Obi-Wan a bit, because Obi-Wan's sort of like this mentor-uncle-teacher thing to Ahsoka. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where
he's a cool uncle.
Yeah. But also like a teacher at the same time, someone that she absolutely respects and will learn from. And so those two really show Ahsoka what it is to be what a Jedi should be. Giving this... I mean, and ultimately that leads Ahsoka to realize that she cannot be in the Order.
Right. Mm-hmm. She's kind of like the ultimate manifestation of, this is a thought that just occurred to me, but we talked in our Obi-Wan episode about how Obi-Wan is a product of the time in which he was brought up in the Jedi Order. It's like, these are the rules and systems that have led to success for everyone before you, but he is sort of coming of age in an era when those things are starting to crumble, and he's like, look, I did all the things everyone told me to, things are not working. Anakin then comes into the picture as all this stuff is coming down and never sees these institutional successes, and it's like, why are we bothering with any of this? None of this has ever, clearly none of this works. And then Ahsoka is the final manifestation of like, maybe we should just walk away from this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ahsoka feels like the spiritual grandchild of Qui-Gon Jinn to me. Where I'm like, when Ahsoka walks away, that's the most Qui-Gon-y any other character has felt to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that in terms of like the lineage of these master-apprentice relationships, she does have a lot of qualities of Anakin, but I think overall she is the most like Qui-Gon, and really just because, you know, Qui-Gon is about the Force and Obi-Wan is about the Jedi Order and Anakin is about power, essentially, and control. And Ahsoka manages to balance all of those and realize her own hierarchy of importance, and the Force ends up coming out on top, where that's what they should be listening to, not the institution, not power and glory and things like that. But it does take her quite some time to be able to learn those things and to be able to put that hierarchy in place for herself.
And specifically being bitten by the institution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't hurt.
We'll speed the process along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think in those moments where Ahsoka's, you know, on trial and Anakin can't really do anything about it, and then it turns out Barriss is the one behind it, Barriss comes in and makes a lot of good points about where the Jedi are. And even though Barriss has been really stupid in the way that she frames that, because she could have made a lot of change with that speech, had she not already bled her kyber crystal and made her lightsaber red. Like, no one's gonna listen to the person with the red lightsaber. But Ahsoka does, and I think that that makes a real impact on her and the way that she feels about the Jedi Order in that moment, which then leads to her becoming, as Mace calls her in Season 7, Citizen Tano.
Lady Tano.
So, the likable and dislikable aspects of Ahsoka, I would say, under likable, she's extremely capable, able to see outside the system, and, in general, kind. For dislikable, I have early Ahsoka is filled with hubris, and that is annoying to no end to me.
I mean, you've nailed some of the important qualities. I will make the division in terms of time. Season 1 and 2 Clone Wars Ahsoka is just sort of infantile. And again, that's not necessarily her fault. The entire show is written that way.
Mm-hmm.
Early Clone Wars is just overly
made for
simplistic.
Different age bracket. Yeah.
It's made for a different age bracket. And early Clone Wars is overly simplistic, and I think Ahsoka's character suffers as a result, because she is literally the child figure in the character set.
Yeah, the supposed to be imprintable child figure that every child that watches can go, look, me!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it's not... I don't know, it's not Ahsoka's fault. Later Clone Wars is when Ahsoka becomes interesting.
Yes.
And you have nailed those qualities. I would go so far as to say that, like, in very late Clone Wars, like season 5, 6, 7, are there dislikable things about Ahsoka? Like, what
Sierra
are some things
says yes.
You put in the dislikable category?
Sierra?
I still have issues with Ahsoka later on, mainly in her kind of flip-floppy qualities, where, okay, I've learned not to do this, and the very next mission, episode, whatever, she does the same, she has the same problem. Or she goes, I really should listen to you, Master. Good point. And then the very next episode, she specifically doesn't listen to him and, like, gets kidnapped or something stupid. It's like, did we just learn? I thought we just learned this lesson, which obviously is not, I mean, all of it comes down to writing, and that's the situation that was created for the episode, and that's the plot, and that's the scenario, and whatnot. And maybe Ahsoka wasn't always meant to be the character in that situation, and then they did it anyway, or they were written in a different order, or whatever the case may be. But I've watched the series in both chronological order and in release order, and I have the same problems either way.
Yeah,
so
that's a fair
it's
call
not
out.
necessarily one of those. So that's really where I have kind of an issue with Ahsoka later on still, is that while she does improve for sure on any of those, you know, her hubris and her basically being baby Anakin, Pretty much. I mean, think of pod racer Anakin, and that's kind of what you have in Ahsoka for a little while. And later on, while she does improve, I still do find some issues with her really feeling like, okay, I went through this whole arc and I learned all these things, and now I'm not going to use any of what I learned. And then I went through this arc and I learned this other thing, and now I'm not going to use any of what I learned. And it's a very drawn out situation that we have with her, from learning the lesson to relearning the lesson to relearning the lesson. So that's just kind of my issue. Now, once we get to the very, very end and we get to the final season, first half of the season, still have my problems with her and how she communicates with others and things like that. Once we get with her and Maul, she becomes fascinating to me. And that's really where I go, okay, I understand why we kind of took this whole journey with her to now see her like this. And then etc. From here, moving forward, the book Rebels, the Ahsoka show, etc. makes more sense to me why we have more Ahsoka content. But until then, every time I'm going, what? I don't really care about her. I want to see these other people. Or didn't we already learn this lesson, Ahsoka? Literally, I have notes in my phone from watching episodes and just going, I thought we just learned this.
Ahsoka's character is really interesting from like a sort of almost an above board level when you're thinking about like what it is to write a character, because I find three different things. One is she learns and she grows and she has a definite arc. There's some good writing in there, especially like I don't even mind her communication problems in season 7 with the two sisters are like, oh, this would bother me as a person. But from a writing standpoint, I'm like, this makes perfect sense. She is a citizen for the first time. She is trying to figure out how to be Force person in civilian mode. And she has still not completely been trained and completely developed into a full adult. So I can understand why she's going through this, even though it bothers me. Then there's, you've learned this lesson so many times, Ahsoka, it almost feels out of character at this point because the plot is calling for it. And that's a writing problem. And so that we're in like these three things where it's like, all right, lessons have been learned and your character's growing. Awesome. Your character still has flaws. Awesome. That's good for the show. Your character has flaws in a way that makes me question what the writers are doing. Bad. I don't like that.
Right. I agreed.
Yeah. So I think, like, I think Sierra, you'll see that she continues to have communication problems, that she is most comfortable communicating through action and not through words in any way, shape, or form. And I find that to be an endearing quality about her, even when it is very frustrating. So you'll see in Rebels...
the case.
What? Say it. Go ahead.
That has always been the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And having Anakin be her master is no, fix to that.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Yeah, the number of times I go, Ahsoka and Anakin, you are so close to actually having a conversation that would be very meaningful right here. Just say like 5 more words.
Nope.
I know exactly how you feel about wanting to leave the order. You do? Never mentioned again. Come on, guys. Just dig a little deeper. The what category? What extra material exists about Ahsoka outside of Clone Wars, I suppose.
But still in the Clone Wars period.
Yes.
Yes.
But still in the not quite later on period that we'll cover later.
Exactly.
It's really just a couple of things. There are going to be, extraneous comics here and there. That will always be the case for Star Wars. It is rich with comic books. They have written one solitary Ahsoka Tano book, and there are 3 episodes in Tale of a Jedi that have to do with Ahsoka being found, Ahsoka's training with Anakin, and then essentially doing the Ahsoka book in television form for 2 seconds, which is the last episode of Tales of a Jedi, which is a very, very fast run through of the Ahsoka Tano book. So in case you didn't want to read, you can watch that and be like, I kind of get it.
So my question with this character, this is sort of the first character we have that their introduction is exclusively outside of the films.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. That's correct?
Of the ones that we're covering, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my question to you, Sam, is all of the content you just mentioned that isn't Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Do you find it to be meaningfully contributing?
Yes and no, and I'll answer that in a second. I will say for those of the Star Wars nerds that are going, no, Boba Fett was the first person introduced outside of the movies because of the Christmas special. We hear you. Nobody cares about that. It doesn't exist.
but also we haven't done Boba Fett yet.
Yes. I'll go through the Tales of the Jedi first. The Tales of a Jedi are very sweet in the first episode because it is like baby Uba, little tiny Ahsoka, she's an infant and 1 year old, and she's being taken around by her, native planet and her mom and her dad to do traditional things. And so she goes on a hunt with her mother and gets attacked by like a giant saber-toothed cat and uses the Force and manages to keep herself safe. And then they realize she's a Jedi and Plo Koon comes and grabs her, which is super fun. Is it important?
Love a good Plo Koon appearance.
Yeah, absolutely. But is it important? Not at all. The second Tale of a Jedi episode, Garrett, is, you know how Palpatine somehow returned in Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah.
And in what's it called? The Mandalorian, they're like starting to show you the cloning processes that are going on to lead up to that. The second Tale of a Jedi episode is essentially an explanation as to how Ahsoka was so well trained to fight off 10,000 different clone troopers. Anakin sees her do some sort of Jedi trial-ish, and she passes with flying colors, and he's like, that's a stupid exercise. And she's like, but all the Jedi have to do it, and I did well. And he's like, I'll give you a real test if you want one. And he has Rex bring a small platoon of clone troopers, and they continue to fire stun weaponry at her until she can fight them all off. It's very, not to do another Harry Potter reference, but it's very Mad-Eye Moody casting Imperius on Harry over and over and over and over again. So that one is integral for the fans who need to see training happening and don't just want to accept that Rey can fly or that Luke can shoot the Death Star because he flew around on his T-16. So, is it essential? No, because I have a high threshold of belief that can come in that, like, yeah, Ahsoka's been fighting for her entire Jedi apprenticeship under Anakin. Feels like that sounds right. But for people who really need to see the training happening, okay, it's there. The last episode of Tales of the Jedi, as I said earlier, is just the book in shorthand. And I do find that important information in preparation for Rebels, for where we end up finding Ahsoka in Rebels. And it's a really neat introspective into what does life look like for a not Jedi who still will be hunted to be a Jedi, and what's going on with all of the Inquisitors. So it's good from that content. And so I'd say that's the closest that it gets to being as the importance of Clone Wars. Okay. So the book, worth it. The other two things were fine, but they're not essential. The how category. How does this extra material change our perspective of the character? So, Sierra, how did Tales of a Jedi and the book change your perspective about Ahsoka?
I think my perspective, I don't know that it necessarily changed, but the extra material really added to my understanding of who she becomes, because I feel that potentially without the book, there's a little bit of a gap in, okay, we saw her and she left and then she comes back and she fights Maul and she fights clones and then she's gone. And then, now she's popping back up. And I feel like the book helps to kind of bridge that, like, okay, this is how she's had to live. And this is why she's still struggling with not actually being a Jedi, but still being Force sensitive, being still hunted, etc., etc. So I think that it just helps my understanding of bridging the content, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's what the book is really there for. It's post-Clone Wars ending, but pre-Season 7. And Ahsoka's turned up in Rebels, and I think that there was enough people clamoring for, like, but how? That this book ended up being a bridge to show you, well, here's how. And
yeah,
I feel like that's what a lot of the prequel books have done, and what a lot of the original trilogy books have done, which is like, just add some extra spice, but not necessarily be integral to any sort of story.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. And I think really the key is that it's adding that material, not necessarily changing anything about her. Because I've found with other books associated with Star Wars or other fandoms that sometimes the author interpretation of a character can get a little far off from the kind of main material that the character is from. And I don't feel this way with Ahsoka, which is nice because I feel like the book keeps it pretty logical as to who she is and kind of the struggles that she's going through.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the things that it adds to me, and that's really all that it does, is it's additive to how I feel about her. It shows that Ahsoka is still going to struggle with who she is. And I think that's just Ahsoka, period, from here on out. Because she's not a Jedi, but she is a Force user, and she follows the Force, and she still likes the ways of the Jedi in turn.
Right.
She also cannot help but to play the hero. She has a calling to help, to aid, and that will never go away. It does add the fact that she doesn't know that Anakin is Vader, which is important details for later on. It shows us that she's extremely resourceful. And then at the very end, it shows us that she joins the rebellion because she trusts Bail Organa. And I have in parentheses here, if only she knew Leia was Anakin. Just talk for 2 seconds more. Just, Ahsoka's not going to give this away. Just let her know. And then, it also gives us the small bit of information that Ahsoka is taking on the code name of Fulcrum. Which, be on the lookout for in future shows. Garrett, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, you kind of nailed it, that she has always occupied this like, somewhat unaffiliated space, and it's not uncommon for us to see her in this, like, self-defined role, right? She doesn't have to have this reliance on other people. She's sort of, especially later on, she is, like, neither side. She is her own character. She is her own definition. And she always chooses this, like, the side of integrity, which happens to end up being the Rebel Alliance. But it takes a lot for her to actually take on an actual affiliation.
Yeah, absolutely.
The where category, part 1. Where does she fit in the fandom of Star Wars? Where does she rank in importance? So I think because she exists outside of the original prequels, but she exists within that time period and further on, I think that she is mostly in the fandom side of the fandom. Because if you were more of a casual watcher of Star Wars, you probably haven't seen a lot that she's been in, or you've maybe only seen the Ahsoka show, and so you don't know the context of how she fits in with the rest of the canon. And so I think that she operates, speaking of kind of unaffiliated, I think she operates kind of in this liminal space almost, where, like an if you know, you know. Where if you know who Ahsoka is, then you know who Ahsoka is. And if you don't, then you can still enjoy so much of the Star Wars content. You just might be missing a little context if you dive into Clone Wars or Rebels or specifically Rebels or the Ahsoka show without having seen Clone Wars. I probably wouldn't advise doing it in that order, but you do you.
Yeah,
if you want to be slightly confused, then sure. But yeah, I think she's a very interesting kind of section of the fandom. And I would argue, pretty beloved by a lot of more in-depth fans.
Yeah.
I seem to be a little on the minority, but I also have a little missing context as well. So,
I mean, the majority of fans, when Clone Wars was going out, I think there was sort of this, like, why is Ahsoka here from the older fans, and there was a lot of the, like, I like her from the younger fans. And now, because as Star Wars always does, the younger fans grow older, they hold on to what they like, and now so she's a little bit more beloved than she was when she was first on the scene.
But also she became a better character.
Yes, there's so much better. Season 4 of Clone Wars moving forward is just so much more interesting, period. And she's in seasons 4 and 5 really as a truly interesting, becoming an interesting character. And then in season 7, she is, I would say, probably
she's the main character.
The main character, and she's the
main character.
S-tier level character of that show. In this arbitrary list of vehicles that I'm comparing to from Death Star all the way down to System class Star Destroyers, I have her as an executor, the Superclass Star Destroyer, which is the powerful but not as iconic character category. Which I think she's a powerful character. But she is not as iconic. And I think the interesting thing about Ahsoka is that I think she's a great character. She has a good arc. She has interesting moments. She has a really cool connection to the Force, which I'm going to talk more about in the next part 2 of the Where category. But she is also emblematic of a growing wariness I have in Star Wars. Which...
Okay, this ought to be good.
We've been very clear about this on our Star Wars podcasts. You should be able to watch all the movies of Star Wars and be able to understand everything that you would need to know in the movies.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure.
And now with The Mandalorian, and with this Dave Filoni unnamed project that he says Ahsoka Season 2 is leading up towards, the sort of MCU-ification of Star Wars has me feeling wary. Because we're going to be putting stuff into the movies that you have to, in my understanding, go and watch a crap ton of other stuff in order to understand. And so Ahsoka, who I love, and obviously Filoni loves her, that's his, like, original character on the show that he was doing. And so she holds a very important place in all of his shows that he's done, or at least has shown up in those shows. I'm worried about what happens to this franchise if you're requiring a large viewership of other things. Yeah.
I totally agree. I have always felt this way.
Yeah.
I have always felt this way.
Because, like a perfect example of this done well is Rogue One. You don't have to watch Andor in order to understand it. It came out first. All of Andor is additive. It doesn't change anything. Clone Wars doesn't change anything.
You also don't have to watch Andor in order to understand A New Hope.
Right.
Yeah. You
don't have to watch the Obi-Wan show in order to go between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. All of those are additive. They're great. But now we've got Mandalorian and Grogu, and it's seeming like... Now, the movie hasn't come out. We haven't seen it yet. But it seems like you're going to have to have watched 3 seasons plus a Book of Boba season in order to understand that movie. And now it seems like you're going to have to have watched Ahsoka's season 1 and 2 in order to watch Filoni's movie.
Unless they, like, pull a writing miracle. But
which would be
sort of
fantastic.
skeptical.
And you could definitely see that happening. I'm not trying to say that they're incapable of doing that. I just worry about, like, if we have the Mortis gods coming up with the owl, and the owl's already made an appearance in Ahsoka's TV show, but if you don't know about the Mortis gods or what the owl is, then... like, if you're required to watch the Ahsoka show in order to watch a movie, then you're kind of required to watch Rebels, and therefore also Clone Wars, in order to understand any of this stuff. So it's not a problem with Ahsoka herself. It's just like, oh man, I just get real worried when we start diving into, you gotta go watch this in order to watch this.
Right. It is very, yeah, it is very difficult to wrap my approval around, okay, great, you've seen the main thing, but now please go watch 87,000 hours of content. Anybody got time for that?
Apparently you and I, because we did it.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're really interested in it. But that's the thing is a casual fan or even someone who's more than that, who still cares about additional content and things, you feel kind of pigeonholed. And I don't know that anybody really appreciates that. And on a more pessimistic side, it just seems like a money grab of, well, in order to watch this, you have to, it's like a gatekeeping thing.
Yeah.
You have to see all these other things, and it is very frustrating. I'm really hoping that, I'm really hoping that at some point when this movie does come out, this, unknown project, that it is self-contained and that the explanation is in there.
Yeah.
So that even if you have seen all the rest and you already know what it is, there is a recap of that information that would be vital to know for what you are watching currently. Yeah. That's my hope. So if they decide to do something like that, then I'm on board. And it's fine to bring these additional characters in and to really elaborate on them. But I think that that's the key, is you have to also explain who they are and why they matter in your own context.
Let us now waltz into the where category part 2 for both of these ladies. Where does Star Wars go with Padme and Ahsoka now? With Padme, if you're going to make any more books, you could make those comics, small, short episodes like Tales of a Jedi, where we get little tidbits here and there. And there is a lot of time still to explore between Phantom and Attack of the Clones, but I would caution against too much exploration. Because I fear if you invest too much time, that's when you start making plot holes. That's when you start making canon issues. And that's when you accidentally level a character up too much.
Yeah.
And then it's like, where was this in Revenge of the Sith? Where was this in Attack of the Clones? Personally, I would like to see a what if episode about what happens if she survives. That would be cool. And I, in general, just want to see Handmaiden's Tales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right in that you have to be very cautious with this type of a character because it has such a defined story and there's not a lot of wiggle room with it. There's not a lot of chance to make more explorations into who she is and what she's done, because we have seen that and then we have seen them essentially retcon who she is in order to make her ending make sense, whatever ending they decided on. And so I would just fear that if you continue to explore Padme, you have to be really careful with in what context, because it would be very, very interesting to get more of when she was a queen, for instance. That would be interesting. I would be game for that. I would like to see more of just kind of Naboo in general, maybe. Maybe when she's younger and seeing other people be the queen and how she kind of got there to begin with. That would be interesting. But what could end up happening if you fill in too much between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith is you could end up compromising Clone Wars. You could end up basically retconning Clone Wars because of what we've discussed already, that she has these character flaws that really don't go away, and they kind of tank her to make the story more palatable. And so it would be really, really difficult to add any content on her in that section. I think your sweet spot is either prequels or, yes, some more of that information on the transition between Queen and Senator. And if you really focus on kind of her time in government, I think that you're okay.
Yeah.
And then when it gets into more of the interpersonal relationships, that is where it could get pretty sticky pretty quick.
Garrett?
I mean, I don't know what more I can add to that.
Fair enough.
We've hit this really well. She has the potential to be a really interesting character, and I think she's sort of let down at the end.
Yeah. With Ahsoka, we know that they're doing a lot with her, right? These are two very opposite sort of Anakin's ladies, right? We've got one who's died and done, and one who's alive and keeps going. And we'll have a lot more to say once we get to Ahsoka's sort of second lore galore after the Ahsoka show is wrapped up and the movie and all of that stuff, when we get to our original trilogy podcast season somewhere in the future. Who knows when that will be. She comes back in Rebels, we know that. She has her own live action show. She's got probably a big part in the Filoni movie coming down the road. But I will say this about Ahsoka's character, just very quickly. It's unfortunate that she seems to be a harbinger of the growing wariness in the fandom about too much Star Wars content, or what Star Wars content we want to get. And so she's someone that I'm excited to see come back. And also I will consistently be wary that we're making content just to make people watch Disney Plus. And so we'll see how well this is done. I trust Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau and that whole crew a lot. And I think the Ahsoka show is great. But my hope is that that we continue along the lines of like Andor, which was, we happen to make a great TV show, therefore people want to watch it, and not we need to make TV shows so that people come and pay money for us.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, yeah, we see Ahsoka is kind of beloved right now and is coming back in a number of ways, and we love to see more of her character and see where she continues growing and changing and kind of shifting focus on Star Wars content to her, which is very interesting because she is kind of an outsider since she exists in only outside content from the movies. So I think that it's really great to see them dive more into her. But yes, I am a little wary that at some point, in order to watch the next movie, you're going to have to watch a TV show. And I'm not about that.
Yeah.
I think that if you're into it and you want to watch it all, that's great. But I don't think you should be shoehorned into having to watch a whole bunch of things just to see a movie. Movies should exist kind of on their own or in a series, which is fine. But you should be able to just watch a movie and not have to have hours of content.
Here's my opinion on that. If you're going to watch a film that is related to ancillary content, watching the film should like pique your interest and be like, oh, maybe there's other stuff that I might be interested in this fandom. It shouldn't make you confused such that you have to go watch the other stuff in order to re-understand the film.
Yeah.
100%.
Well said. Well said.
Today's public service announcement is brought to you by the Jedi Temple. Do you know where your Padawan is? Is it past the third moon? Are they out? Do you know who they're with? The Jedi Temple has reported a significant increase in unsupervised Padawans in the Coruscant Entertainment District. They are easy to spot. They are wearing robes that they think are subtle. If you see an unaccompanied Padawan in your establishment, please contact the temple directly. Do not serve them. Do not let them use the Force to pay their tab. Do not be impressed by the lightsaber. You are an adult. Act like one. To the Padawans listening to this, we know about the rooftop races. We know about the level 1313 situation. Master Windu knows. He has always known. The Council's position is that they are monitoring the situation, which means they're waiting for you to figure it out for yourselves, but that patience is not unlimited. Go home. This notice produced in cooperation with the Jedi Order and the Coruscant Bureau of Youth Services. The Jedi Order would like to clarify that Anakin Skywalker is not the subject of this notice specifically. The timing is coincidental.
The 1313 shout out is incredible. That's a deep cut for Star Wars fans.
Should have happened.
It should have.
Well, on that note, thank you very much, Garrett, for joining us today.
Happy to.
Thank you, sir. Always great to have you on. Thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode of Fandom Shmandom. If you'd like to discuss this episode, or any other episode we've done, please hit us up on our social media channels. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Fandom Shmandom Pod. Again, you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Fandom Shmandom Pod. And we have a Patreon. Go to patreon.com/CW/Fandom Shmandom to check out our little extra materials and our entire old season of Stranger Things.
Please also don't forget to rate and review us if you liked the episode. It really helps with the algorithm placing us in front of other like-minded schmisteners out there.
And with that, we're out, y'all.
Don't forget to tip your leading ladies.
And fare thee well.
Fandom Shmandom was created by Sam Williams and Sierra Obermark. The show is produced by Aurelia Lieb. The editor is Brittany Fisher. The music is by Jeremiah Alves.
And how do our schmisteners mainly know her? Sam, do you have an answer for this? Or would you like me to elucidate? Enumerally. I can't words anymore. I can't words. I was trying to say...
do you want me to enumerate? Do you want me to propagate multiple Ahsokas?
Yeah, I was going to say... I don't know. I lost the word. I was going to go on a little tangent and then it died immediately in my mouth.
Somebody out there in the universe has gone, no, it's Boba.
Science adjacent with Garrett and Sam.
Welcome to I clicked my teeth before I started talking. Hold on.
Welcome! It's Garrett, the literal space scientist fielding. Wait.
Hi, welcome. I don't know why I said welcome. Do that again.
Try that one more time. It sounded like you had way more to say.
I did, but then I realized I said welcome, and I'm like... I'm the one being welcomed.
Sierra! Garrett, did you start watching Obi-Wan?
No. I know things.
Sierra, my life's work is getting Garrett to watch Star Wars shows that I know he'll like.
Uh-huh.
And
yes,
as his brother Hayden put it once, Garrett is the stickiest of sticks in the muddiest of muds about it. You could almost give her the Iron Man treatment. She's a genius, billionaire. Good God, Sam. You could almost give her the Iron Man treatment. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. She's extremely smart. She's definitely wealthy.
Philanthropist.
There's a
What did I
TH
say?
in that word. You said philanthropist.
I just changed it. You had it spelled wrong. Maybe that'll...
Oh, good, great. Chaotic episode. Our big
joke.
apologies. Wanted to leave you with one last one that was difficult. So here's me for the next
really tried not to.
8 years to go blah, 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 for the rest of the podcast while everybody else talks. Good luck. Excuse me.
All of the bodily functions are happening right now.
Apparently. I am a toddler, and I need a diaper. Just kidding.
Wait, hold on. Am I in the Leia and Padme of this all? Because I am the girl in a trio.
Yeah.
Yep. I guess
Nailed
that makes Garrett Obi-Wan and me Anakin, because I've got longer hair and it's a little bit darker, and Garrett is blonde.
Oh, we're going just off of physical appearance, not
That's
character
it. Just
at all.
hair. Not even physical appearance. Because I do not look
Just
anything
hair
like Hayden
color.
Christensen. It's just because of hair color.
Oh, that's funny.
Although I guess I have a beard and you don't, so that would swap us.
But yes, I would be Obi-Wan, yes.
I know. You get to be Padme. That means you're gonna die soon.
Sad. And say it with me. Sad.
We've talked a lot about it. She is resourceful, passionate, sharp, unrelenting, unbendable. What did I say wrong?
You said multiple things wrong. You should just restart the sentence. Sorry. You said passionate, and you said...
Sharpie.
Yeah, something else before that.
Unbootable.
No, it was earlier in the sentence.
Lookable and dislukable. Galactic scale.
On a galactic scale, thank you. I was going to say, it's bigger than global because it's not just one planet. On a galactic
not the universe,
scale.
But it's not the globe. There's something in between these two things.
There's something there. Exactly.